Am Stunned by the Evil Part 2. April 2, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. However, by 2009, the Church was being blamed, effectively and determinedly, by me and my cohorts, until it was all finally brought before Pope Benedict XVI, who accepted responsibility, who exercised his temporal powers, and began dealing with the corruption. Pope Francis has brought the vitality and vigor and insight needed to the office and is continuing to bring remedy. Meanwhile, the bankruptcy of the United States of America, Inc. has finally been ended. The old Federal Reserve System is no more, but a new version of Federal Reserve has been organized under United Nations auspices and has tried to mount a new round of the same old game in collusion with the IMF. It's a funny thing about a debt-credit monetary system. When you create a debt for one party, you unavoidably create a debt for another. So when people talk about the national debt being $13 or $21 or however many trillion dollars, that means that somewhere, someone or something, is being credited with that amount of money. Exactly who and what came to the surface in July of 2011. We have the UCC filings on file. The perpetrators rolled the credit side of the national debt over into the United States Department of the Treasury and used it to back a new species of fiat debt note called U.S. Treasury notes. They have attempted, in other words, to initiate another round of the same old scam. There is little doubt that it was the intention of the two colluding banking cartels, the Federal Reserve and the IMF, to simply reverse positions, bankrupt the United States, Inc., leaving the Roman inferior trusts named after the Americans to stand as sureties for the debts of the insolvent United States, Inc. during another nice, long bankruptcy reorganization. Intervention by Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis both, together with ever-increasing public awareness of the situation and the fraud, has served to make what is euphemistically called revenue impossible. In addition to the American state citizens waking up, the Russians and Chinese and other nations of the BRICS alliance woke up. As part of the fraud practiced against the Americans, Canadians, Australians, Japanese, and the populations of most the countries of Western Europe, all bank accounts were converted to the ownership of the banks. As you now know, if you didn't before, all bank accounts belonging to John Quincy Public are in fact accounts belonging to a Puerto Rican estate trust owned and operated by agencies of the IMF. This is how Christine Lagarde can speak so nonchalantly about seizing American 401ks and savings and other retirement accounts. The IMF surreptitiously owns those accounts. The living Americans who innocently deposited their life savings into those accounts thinking that they were their own private bank accounts have been deceived and defrauded and presumed by the perpetrators to donate everything in those accounts to public trusts operated in their names. Remember, I am an officer of the Church, too. All members of the Universal Church Militant are officers charged with defending the gospel and peace and truth. I have taken the vow and placed the blood seal on the altar. The blood seal that had to be placed before the Vatican Chancery Court at risk of my soul to prove that I wasn't knowingly lying about any of this and to allow me to address the canon laws of equity. This is not a joke. This is not a rehearsal. Take what you believe to be your checkbook out of your pocket and a strong magnifying glass and look at what appears to be the signature line. What do you see? It's not really a line. It's a row of microprint endlessly repeating, authorizing signature. Why would that verbiage have to be there, and why would it have to be obscured? To keep the victims from knowing the truth, that all their assets in banks have been unlawfully converted. You've already been told about the Puerto Rican estate trusts. Now witness the IRS scam. The living man, John Quincy Adams, is exempt by law from ever having to pay taxes, and by definition, income is profit accrued by corporations. It is literally impossible for any living American to owe income tax, yet millions upon millions of Americans are robbed, defrauded, harassed, and even imprisoned every year over income taxes. How is this possible? The John Quincy Adams estate is a trust, a legal fiction entity, a corporation. Every dime that the living man known as John Quincy Adams unknowingly donates to the bank account belonging to the John Quincy Adams estate is 100% profit for a Puerto Rican trust, and it just so happens that there is an excise tax for the privilege of importing revenue to Puerto Rico. The monsters tax the poor devils for the privilege of giving them their money, and then people like Christine Lagarde sit around drinking champagne and callously discussing exactly how to finesse the seizure of the retirement accounts of millions of innocent American senior citizens. But there are worse things. Other elements among the criminals have taken out million-dollar life insurance policies on every American man, woman and child. They think they will simply murder a few $100 million of their creditors and collect on the life insurance policies. Have you heard of the all-seeing Cardinal George? I am the left hand of Anu, Hotep, and I will be obeyed in this matter, as will Pope Francis. There will be no seizure of the American retirement accounts, no false flags, no murder, no mayhem, no scalar weapons deployed. There will be no deceptive offers in commerce seeking to exchange gold for land or human capital under conditions of non-disclosure and deceit. There will be an end to this criminality and to the complacency of the Church and of the American cardinals and archbishops responsible for the misadministration of the courts. Or there will be hell on earth, Cardinal George, literally, and it will not come against the innocent Americans. The left hand of God will come for those who are responsible and unrepentant. The Treaty of Verona is extinguished. All bar association licenses are extinguished. By order of Pope Francis, all attorneys, all clerks, every member of the judicial system operating these frauds and oppressions became 100% individually and commercially liable as of September 1, 2013. The banking cartels and governmental services corporations have been given 3 years to clean up their acts from top to bottom, to come into compliance with the original equity contract owed to the Americans, and to stop operating in criminal default. I suggest that you get over your idea that it is the voters' responsibility. May God bless you to the same extent that you bless others. Anna Maria Wilhelmina Hanna Sophia, Riesinger von Reitzenstein von Leto, blank. Now, does that sound like I am bringing any fraud or harm against the states of the Union? Or the wrath of God against those harming and defrauding the American states and people? In fact, Sun Tzu conveniently forgot to include 2 very important words. I said I was bringing forward the fraud against the states and people for remedy. You can see that letter in its entirety, published in my book, Disclosure 101, available on Amazon.com for around $10. If this man would so grotesquely lie about this, and so grossly misrepresent me and my work, he would lie about anything, and those who flock with him would too. Water always seeks its own level. My work has been to deliver you all from evil of the same kind that he, Sun Tzu, is promoting. And while we are on the topic of his deliberate lies, he is running a website called Nasara News and pumping out all sorts of do-nothing, all will be well nonsense, claiming that Nasara and Gesera are right around the corner, just sit tight and everything will be grand. Go to thomas.com and look up the Nasara legislation and see for yourself that it hasn't been touched since the 1990s. Go look it up on Wikipedia, even, and see that it has gone nowhere, done nothing. His whole website and everything on it is bogus. Including this misrepresentation and hate campaign against me. P.S. This same lying blowhard is suggesting that he can do some legal move and magically cancel all the contracts people have unwittingly established with the United States, without you having to take any action for yourselves. If that were true, he could also take away your right to contract and overcome the Constitution of the United States. So, be warned, if this man's lips are moving, he's lying. Please hit subscribe, like, share, embed, and get ready for many more of my article videos.